Check out huge Black Friday sales at monkeywerxus.com. Monkeywerx, works for the soul. All right. Hey, welcome, folks. It's going to be your SITREP. It's 11/25/2025. Coming to you live here from the Monkey Lounge, great state of Texas. So, hey, before we get started, make sure you check out monkeywerx.com. Just jump over there, monkeywerx.com, for the latest Black Friday sales. We got a lot of things going on right now. And there, in fact, supplements, buy one, get one, which is a pretty big deal. And then, of course, the beard oils are going to be buy two, get one free. And let's see, what else do we have? 15% across the entire website. So jump in there because there are some items that are limited in supply. And once they're gone, they are gone. So, all right, let's jump on over here to the sky. So today we're going to be talking about just basically everything from drug boats to, glide bombers. What's going on around the world? We're looking at Venezuela. It's probably going to be up first. But we've got a Russian-Ukrainian peace deal that's trying to be brokered. I don't think any of this stuff's going to happen. In fact, I will tell you, if the Russians decide to park assets down in the Caribbean, the U.S. is going to we'll turn around and go away. I don't see us pushing this all the way out with Russians down there. And I think that may very well likely happen. So I'll explain a little more in a minute, but let's get into the deets. All right, starting off in Skyglass, as always, sitting at around 280 aircraft up. I've stripped out all of the trainers. If we look at the intel surveillance and reconnaissance, you'll notice that the United States is pretty much covered up, about 80%. There are some that are just not showing, what I know are absolutely out there, but these are your high flyers. Those are intel balloons that are above the United States, looking and listening all the time. Now, since I started pulling together all the B-roll, which is all of the little content you see when I show you the flight history, I try to do that to save us a little bit of time. But since I started pulling that, we lost, there is a mil intel balloon right here that has since gone offline. Always convenient when that happens. We also have a nuke sniffer that was up, and that one has also gone dark on me. So, all right, let's go ahead and do this. We're going to peel this banana back. We'll start out. I'm going to show you the C-17 traffic first and foremost, and then we're just going to start running across all of the news that is going on in the world. But this is a pretty heavy volume, 5 days worth. It's about 483 flights. And you'll notice in and out of, Beale, I think, Air Force Base headed into Hawaii. So big load up, a lot of stuff headed out to the Pacific, a lot of C-17 broken traces, which tells you that there is an operation going on because those are the ones they actually like to wipe. You'll see some stuff going down to USVI, again, last 5 days, but also a boatload of broken traces, okay? Look at the volume going across the Atlantic, right? That tells you there is a lot of stuff happening right now in Europe and the Middle East. Look at the flow going into Ramstein, right? That's our center hub. You can see the flow. Look at the broken traces headed off the coast of Africa, right? I'm thinking Nigeria has probably got a lot more meat to it than what we're going to see. But the fact that they start breaking those traces tells you there's some ops behind it, okay? But the flow going across the Mediterranean that's a lot of flights, right? Big volume going into Bahrain and Qatar, etc. Last 5 days, and yeah, that's a lot. Okay. Now we jump over to Japan. You'll see just as always, fair amount of volume. 5 days. That's not a ton. We've seen more in recent days, but that's where we stack up there. Then take a look at the air refuelers. As always, you'll see some traces into Hawaii. And then you'll see a couple going across the drink. The U.S. is just straight up covered up. There's a lot of flying going on there. That's a big indicator of fighters. You'll see some broken traces down to the Caribbean. That is more than likely tied to the bomber activity. We'll look at that here in a minute as well. And then you'll see some traces towards Gibraltar, right? And then up into England. The usual stuff we see around Europe. And then some flights going into Kuwait and Bahrain, right? And then pretty heavy in terms of volume around the Japan around the Asian Pacific side of the house. So, okay, now we'll break into the other traces here in a few minutes. Let's go ahead and start. I'm going to break us. Actually, let me go here first. First and foremost, looks like Trump, let me back down here on Tuesday, leaving. They're going to pardon a Turkey, and then they're headed to West Palm Beach down to Mar-a-Lago. All right. Looks like he'll be there till Sunday. So let's move on. All right, Russian oil tanker is forced to turn back. Now, we talked about this the other day. It's a tanker called Seahorse. It's part of the Ghost Fleet, where the Russians are actually trying to evade sanctions. And so they move this stuff around and this oil, and they make sales to places like Venezuela, et cetera. But the interesting thing to this, all right, is this one right here, because I went to look to see if it was indeed still in Cuba, because the U.S. Navy had turned the ship around 3 times, and it looks like we have just stood down on it, all right? It's now parked in Venezuela. They're unloading their oil, all right? And my guess is that the Russians said, hey, look, you either let it down there or we're going to start putting our naval assets into the region. And we probably back down. There is a trend I'm seeing here, folks, and it is an alarming trend. When you tell Hamas 6 p.m., and you let that timeline come and go and you do nothing, right? You're sending a message. When you block a Russian oil tanker, a ghost, part of the Ghost Fleet, okay, 3 times, and then you turn around and let it go because Russia probably said, hey, we're about to put some assets in there, that tells you that our enemies know that we are not going to push it any further than that. We're going to make a lot of noise, right? We're going to talk a lot of smack, but when the push comes to shove, we're going to do absolutely nothing. That is a trend that I'm seeing here, folks. And I know some of you may be, it's art of the deal, right? Well, if that's art of the deal, that's like you're telling somebody, I'm going to knock you out, right? And then when they decide, okay, you know what, let's go. It's on. I want to see you knock me out. Then you go, I didn't really mean it, right? That's really kind of what this is all looking like, right? Like, we are not going to push it to the point that we engage in some type of a war for footing. Okay, so my guess too is that if Russia pushes naval assets into the Caribbean or comes into harbor in Venezuela and Cuba, we will probably stand down when it comes to all of this effort going on here. All right, just going to put that out there now. All right. Now, speaking of that, you take a look at what's going on. If we get to the latest and greatest, this is, let's see here. You can see there was the headline. U.S. Navy warship blocked a fuel tanker on its way to Russia, from Russia to Venezuela, prevented it from reaching destination. Now, not the case. It just showed you it's actually sitting in port. Okay. So there's that. We've had some more B-52s come down into the region. So we will continue to push on real fast through all of this. But next piece, right? U.S. just happened yesterday. Venezuela has been, well, actually the terrorist organization has been, I say terrorist organization, the cartel has been deemed a terrorist organization. Scratch that, reverse it, right? U.S. has made it official as of the 24th. That means now that you got Title 10 money that they can push into the region in terms of war act. Okay. If we decide to go to war, right now we're being funded probably through various funds. Okay. You've got Southern Spear, which is going to give it that CLIN money that we talked about, right? Different colors of money. Those are cost buckets. When they designate an operation official, then that gives them money to go do that. Okay. And so that is probably how we're going to be handling a lot of this. If we go to war, it goes through Congress, et cetera. They get Title 10 money. This becomes important because now they've got a terrorist organization. And oh, by the way, if you deem this cartel of the Sons a terrorist organization, and you deem this guy as part of them, then he is also deemed a terrorist. Then that gives you a lot of leeway where you don't necessarily have to fully engage on Title 10 and go to war. You can still do it with all the other stuff that we've been talking about, and still get probably the job done. So let's continue on. All right. So the B-52s returned to the Caribbean for the second mission in 5 days. So let me just take you over here to the bombers and what they've been up to. But you'll see they came out of Minot, call sign Pappy 11, right? You'll see it flies down, it goes dark when it gets over the Caribbean. Again, anytime you see the military go dark on traces, that's typically operational relation or related, right? Operationally related. There you go. All right. You notice you got down the Caribbean, it was nothing. Okay. Remember the air refuelers? I just showed you the traces coming out of near Gibraltar. Okay. And you see that right there. So evidently we had bombers there. I didn't know they were there. So they just came back to the U.S. You'll see them departing there. That would explain why we have the traces with the air refuelers. They were escorting them back. Right. There you have it. That's on the B-52s. Nothing else anywhere. Okay. All right. Let's continue on. Okay. U.S. to launch a new phase of the Venezuelan operation. That's because of the declaration. Now that they've been deemed terrorist organizations, then that'll probably open up a different path in terms of funding, in terms of the level of how this actually goes into play. Now, again, as I've said multiple times, this is a containment situation. I don't see us actually going into Venezuela. We may have some surgical targets where you got some forward observers painting, laser painting or lasing, maybe some cartel operations or something along those lines. Maybe even Maduro. But like I said, I think if Russia brings some heavy assets into Venezuela, the United States will stand down just because that's the trend. And they know that. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 10 days, you see the Russians bring some frigates and maybe some other stuff into the region and just to buy Maduro time and maybe even cause us to stand down, right? If not, then, we may actually see an operation take place where we start hitting these cartels, okay? All right. Regime change not ruled out as the U.S. molds escalation against Venezuela. Like I said, they talked about the operation going to the next level. All right. Unnamed U.S. official says covert operations would likely be the first part of the new action. And so covert operations means you got, boots on the ground guys that are, your pipe hitters, right? Special forces going in and doing their thing. That'll be the first part. And then if it has to, didn't rule out anything regarding Venezuela, that they may go in and take this guy down. All right. We've done it in the past, folks. If you know our CIA, you know their MO. We do this actually quite a bit. Okay. We've taken down, remember Noriega? Well, go look at, in Libya, right? We took out the leader there, Gaddafi. We've done it around the world. The CIA has, and our government for decades, right? It's what we do. So, Zelensky's thing, right? We didn't necessarily take out the leader in terms of, X on the spot, but we overthrew him, right? And that was the Obama administration in 2014. There was a Russian president that was in office, and we basically overthrew him, and we put in Zelensky. All right. Okay. Now we're going to shift. We'll look at the U.S. here a little closer because this also starts to come into play because a lot of these folks that we're rounding up when it comes to illegals are very, very bad people. They are tied to gangs and cartels as well as terrorist organizations. Now, you may have seen some of the news with the 60s, right? The Blackhawks rolling into Chicago. And that looked pretty interesting. Okay. But it looks like we are now expanding to another city. We just had it happen in Charlotte. In fact, in Charlotte, North Carolina, they're saying that the schools around that city, about 40% of the students are not there. And it's because that is the volume of illegals that are currently in the school system in Charlotte. The kids are afraid to show up. Their parents are illegals. And, many of them have just been taken down. So they've all been kicked out. 40%, folks. Let that sink in. That's a lot of people. In Charlotte, That's crazy. Okay. Right. Border Patrol heads to another blue city in the latest round of illegal immigration sweeps. This one, they're headed to Nolens. All right. And it says this is a Democratic-run city is expected to see sweeps similar to the ongoing operations in L.A., Chicago, Charlotte. We just talked about those. All right. But the goal is to arrest roughly 5,000 illegal immigrants living in both Louisiana and Mississippi. 5,000. That's a crazy number, and it doesn't even probably scratch the surface. So Dallas will be coming up. Houston will be coming up in volume. Miami, right? You look at all of the cities that we watched, all of the Swift air flights go into for years with via the NGOs, and those are all the big points that they'll be hitting. Okay. All right, check this out. U.S. Marines are training to tackle Russian S-300 air defense systems. Which country is their target? Well, let me tell you, Venezuela is right there on the list. Okay. Venezuela and Iran are two that I think, just based on the flight traffic and where we're seeing things stack up, very likely, if they do this, that would be the case, right? Russia's been feeding Venezuela all kinds of missile defense and air defense and things like that very quietly, right? Not just from an air, bringing them in via, IL-76 aircraft, but they've been bringing them in, via ship, et cetera. So this gets interesting because Venezuela, you see the B-52s that fly along the coast of Caracas, right? Believe me, they are checking to see whether or not they're getting hits, if they're being picked up, if they're being tracked as they fly that along the area. They didn't want to be seen. You just fly a couple B-2s out along that side and you still get the same message across, but they're not going to be picked up on. So what do? They test the fences, right? They're going to fly right along the edge and see what gets tracked and what does not. That tells them what is down there asset-wise, right? Old school. Okay. Because believe me, B-52 is a very big target. Okay. All right. Now, transitioning away from, the Venezuela piece, we get over into what's going on from the Russia-Ukraine aspect. This is starting to really kind of bulge. There's a lot of stuff happening when it comes to NATO, when it comes to, the high probability of this conflict actually going hot. Right now, let me show you as we get into this. We talk about these shadow fleets, etc. Let me just show you what's been happening. Take a look at all of the NATO. We're going to look at NATO, China, and Russia. Okay, so we'll start off looking at the NATO flights, and you'll see last 5 days very hot and heavy over Germany and France. But you'll notice the trend of flights that head out over the Mediterranean down into Jordan. Now, these that you see going here into Johannesburg, more than likely tied to the G20 summit that just took place, right? I will tell you that U.S. boycotted it. We didn't show up. The Russians were actually there, which is kind of crazy. And I'll show you, it wasn't Putin, but others, all right? But, yeah, you can see, look at the amount of flights that NATO is now starting to push into the Middle East. All right. This is about containment as well. Okay. If NATO starts to get engaged there, then it just goes to show you they know that this is going to spread into a world war very quickly. They're putting the assets into the proper positions to try to prevent the spread. Okay. And then you can see a couple flights going into the U.S. Now, take a look at the Ruskies. Right. 5 days, heavy volume, but pay attention to the southern side of this, the flanks that drop down heavy into the Middle East, just on the other side of Turkey, right up there near Azerbaijan, etc. Notice too the amount of flights into Beijing, China, right? But look at the Middle East, and then we see this one goes down to Johannesburg. That's because of the G20 summit, as you can see, and you can see it actually. They leave there, they fly east. And then it looks like they depart and go dark. All right. Now I see a couple of traces that go south from here. Notice they go dark. All right. Broken traces. Ignore that. That is just not accurate, as I've found. I don't see anything going um, into Venezuela yet, but we're going to keep a close eye on that. All right. Now, here's China. All right. Very heavy up into Beijing, but you'll see the flights that drop down. Actually, which is kind of strange. You see a flight that goes down to Australia. Okay. And then into New Zealand. Did not expect to see the Chinese going down there. All right. But pretty active last 5 days. They don't broadcast a lot. So to see that tells you that they are definitely on the move. I looked Middle East. I don't see anything. You jump down to Africa. I don't even see anything there. And then you get in or down to Venezuela. I don't see anything either. Okay. All right. Now, this Royal Navy shadows the Russian warships through the English Channel as maritime tensions escalate. So this, we're starting to see this quite a bit. They've got this Russian spy ship that's out there. We used to call them Brand X. But this is the first time that we've had this action from Yantar, which is the boat, right, directed against the British RAF. They actually shined lasers into the RAF pilot's eyes. Again, things are starting to escalate. Little here, little there. Drone crash in Romania, Moldova, as Russian bombards Ukraine. And so this was a drone. They think maybe it just got away from them. It was actually, they even think maybe it ran out of fuel. Wasn't one that was loaded with armament or anything along those lines. It was actually a recon, more than likely, what they think. But it actually crashed over the border. This has been happening a lot lately. Now you get over here, Defense Post. Trump pushes Ukraine to accept the plan ahead of the November 27th deadline. That's 2 days from now. And he's telling Zelensky he'll have to like it. And if he doesn't like it, then, they just keep fighting. All right. So he says at some point they're going to have to accept something. So they put together this 28-point document. I'll just give you a couple of the highlights as we kind of get into the deets here. U.S. peace proposal requires Ukraine to cede land and cut army size. I don't see this happening on any level. It says the draft provides for the recognition of Crimea and the other regions that the Russians have already taken, and then a reduction of the army to 400,000 personnel. I don't see them having a problem getting to 400,000 personnel because they've lost so many. I don't even think they can get to 400,000. It just seems like a number that is just arbitrarily out there for them to agree upon something. Okay. But this is the big give. I don't think they're going to take it. In fact, Zero Hedge says that, right? Ukraine rejects key aspects of Trump's peace plan, won't cede territory. He basically laid it out as red lines concerning U.S. proposed peace plan with Russia. It says that they will not accept any form of legal recognition of Russia's occupation. So again, this thing's dead in the probably before it even gets started. And, much like the Middle East peace plan for Gaza, right? That thing's already dead. In fact, just was looking a couple of days ago and the IDF has just been lighting up Gaza. Okay. All right, let's go down here. Let's say we continue without supporting. And we read the last story. I almost made it through all of this without having any type of, major, breach. Almost, not quite. All right. Ukraine's military says it hit Russian oil refineries and terminal. So Ukraine's military hit the Russian oil refinery in this region. Notice I did not try to pronounce that. And an oil terminal in the this other port on Tuesday. Kiev's forces have stepped up long-range attacks on Russian targets. Remember, we just gave them long-range missiles, okay? In fact, that was one of the big, the cruise missiles. I'm just telling you this, them hitting the oil refinery, and I mean, that is Russia's bread and butter. If there was anything that was going to spark a major response from Russia, it's going to be hitting them with the oil side, whether it is turning around vessels in the Caribbean or taking out their ability to refine the oil. That is going to be the big deal. I'm just putting that out there. Ukraine continues to do it. And as NATO and the U.S. continue to feed them with the weaponry to hit those deeper and deeper inside of Russia, it just brings us closer into, the view in terms of, in on it. Okay. So, all right, folks, listen, that is going to do it for our SITREP today. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday. Thursday, there will not be a SITREP on Thursday. It's Thanksgiving Day, so I will probably push that out on Friday. But nonetheless, we will see you then. I hope you guys have a blessed and fantastic Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on the other side. You guys be safe. God bless. Monkey out.